and two main presentations of around 25 minutes each, and finally 5 minutes for Q&A. Unfortunately, one of the main speakers couldn't do it today. He was stuck in New York, so his plane was quite late, and then he missed his plane from Madrid to Sevilla. So we will modify a little bit the order of this session. So I will start with my introductory presentation, then Chiriaco Maraschiello, that is the head of Global Therapeutics Development at Evotec, will do his presentation of about 35 minutes, and then I will have some concluding remarks at the end of the session, and if we have some questions, we can discuss them after that. So I will jump directly to my presentation for the sake of the time. And when we decided to set up this meeting, the idea was to discuss this subject that is quite on the hype. So that is called artificial intelligence. How can we take advantage of it? So my name is Carlos Galmarin, and I work in PharmaMar. And I'm the head of the cell biology and pharmacogenomics department. And there, some time ago, we have decided to set up a program on artificial intelligence in order to generate virtual models of a tumor cell, of animals, of patients, to try to, in the near future, and maybe it will sound as a dream, but to test virtual molecules on them before going into the experiments. And the first thing that we learned was that we have plenty of data in the lab, and we need to translate this data into a language that computers can understand. And this language is binary fingerprints. So we have decided to collect all this data and transform it, so we have written a small piece of code to transform this data into these binary fingerprints. And here you have an example, a part of an example of a binary fingerprint. Indeed, this is a small DNA sequence of a very specific gene of a tumor cell line. And here you have another example of the same DNA sequence on the same gene, but in another tumor cell line. So I would like to ask you if you can tell me the difference between this tumor cell line and this tumor cell line. Of course, you are going to ask me for more time, and maybe a piece of paper and a pencil, and you will go number by number in order to detect the differences, and maybe you will individually take 2 hours. And somebody could have a brilliant idea, say, why we don't divide these, I don't know, 80 people that we have here, instead of working alone, divide the audience in groups, and each group will take care of 3 or 4 lines of the slide. And by this way, we are going to work faster than individuals. And yes, you are right. Maybe by this way, working in groups, we will have that information, so the difference between these 2 cell lines, in 5 minutes. But we have done in the lab was to create another piece of code that would take these binary fingerprints as inputs, analyze them, compare between them, and give us an output. And the output was that the main difference was that this cell line had a 0 here, indicating that there was no mutation on that DNA position, and the first cell line had a 1, indicating that they had a very specific mutation on that position. And it was done in less than 1 second. And yes, maybe working all together as a collective human intelligence, as a team, we would have the same result in a minute. But why doing that when we can develop a system that will take this difference in 1 second? Is this indicating that this computer with this very specific program is more intelligent than me? No, of course not. Is this indicating that in PharmaMar they are going to fire me and replace me with this computer with this very specific code? Of course not. If PharmaMar wants to fire me, they will hire another scientist that would know better than me how to code computers, how to analyze the information that is getting out from these computers. So what we have done recently is based on this, because this is a very clear example. We have access to a public database, and we have downloaded the genomes of more than 10,000 cancer patients. And we have done the same approach. transform them into binary fingerprints, analyze it with our piece of code, and we have obtained the results, the comparison between these 10,000 cancer genomes in almost 8 hours. My team of 4 people, it would take, I don't know, 2 months to compare all these genomes all together. So a long history we have learned, and the example was clear here, that group of people working together are always smarter than any individual, even if this individual is Einstein. So a group of people works better than an individual. So now we have to understand that a group of people and computers are going always to be smarter than people's working alone together or computers together working alone. This is, I think, what we need to understand, because we can use this new kind of collective intelligence. I don't know which is going to be the name, but I like that name, collective intelligence, in order to create smarter organizations, in order to produce smarter research, and also, in the end, to solve problems that up to now were thought to be impossible to solve. So this meeting was based on the intention of showing you examples of how artificial intelligence can help us to create these smarter organizations in order to achieve our goals faster and in a smarter way. So the first talk will be by Ciriaco Maraschiello, and he's going to show us examples of how artificial intelligence can help us to get smarter drug discovery and development process and programs. So Ciriaco, microphones are all yours.
Thank you, Carlos. Buenos días a todos. Okay, artificial intelligence. When Carlos contacted me, I was a bit reluctant, I have to confess, because, so I hope this is working. So I was a bit reluctant because the topic artificial intelligence applied to drug discovery and development is actually very new. Not everybody is in this sector, and frankly speaking, I had to think a lot. But step by step, internally discussing with the colleagues in discovery, we are making significant steps, as you will see. Then in development, we are using the Internet of Things. We are using big data analysis. I will show you some examples that are completely influencing our processes and the way we interpret the business. And then I thought also to introduce some examples of the application of artificial intelligence in healthcare. And then finally, a Spanish reality, a small startup, using Internet of Things and big data analysis applied to home care. Very interesting. So just to give you what's moving on in the sector and where we are going with the artificial intelligence. So I will start with something a bit boring. So I just wanted to show you, to explain to you in 30 seconds what is Evotec, who is Evotec, all right? So Evotec, 2,400 scientists with a strong big pharma background. We have 4 main sites. These sites are ex-pharma sites from Lilly, AstraZeneca, GSK, Sanofi. And this means that we have the background to develop drugs. So we know how to develop drugs. We know how to discover drugs. We know how to develop them and bring it to the clinic and into commercialization. Excellence in quality, and we are GXP, GLP, GCP, GMP, ISO, ALAC, all the certification that you can imagine. We have that. That means that we work in a very restricted environment in terms of regulatory requirements. We accelerate the access to phase 1 in less than 52 weeks, and we do that by combining all the drug substance and drug product manufacturing with preclinical assessment. So we provide the full R&D package. This is what is Evotec. It's an R&D engine, right? That's it, I stop here. So for those who didn't know Evotec, this is what we are. All right. Artificial intelligence, smartphones, smart TV, neuronal network. So we are all connected. Everything is connected. And I picked up this video in YouTube. It might not be very original, because, oh yes, he's picking up a YouTube video. Everybody is doing that. Yes, everybody is doing that. But I think that the guy who is speaking there is telling some truth.
So you hear people complain these days that everything is becoming automated. The robots are stealing our jobs. AI is coming, the Terminator scenario, you know? But I think that ultimately people don't really have a reason to be scared, because I think that what artificial intelligence ultimately comes down to, what outsourcing our cognition into the machines is really all about, it's about amplifying the most powerful phenomenon in the universe, which is intelligence. We're finally learning to reverse engineer, distill, understand, reproduce intelligence. Once we can create sentience that is not bound by the bandwidth of our physicality, of our biology, we'll literally be creating a sentience that can upgrade itself, minds that create minds, computers that build better computers. And at this point, the runaway train that literally is speeding up at an exponential rate will leave everything behind. The human era will have ended. We will have become our creations. They will be our children, but they will really be us. There is no reason to fear this. This is just evolution.
All right, there is no reason to fear this. I think he's right, and we could, just with this video, we could open a debate for 2 hours. I'm conscious of this, but he's saying some interesting things, no? We don't have to fear this, as Carlos was saying. We will not be replaced by machine, we will not be replaced by artificial intelligence. I think that what will happen is that our life will become easier and we will be smarter, we will become smarter. All right, and there is also a concept that he says that, I mean, is quite interesting and curious. He says, outsourcing cognition. Now, I think that this makes us thinking a lot. All right, this is the evolution in the pharmaceutical industry. So the paradigm changed in the last 20 years. In the pharmaceutical industry, I started to work for a very small CRO in the 1990s, and it was very curious because at that time, when we were subcontracted a study or a package of studies, we was just doing the studies, producing the data, and that's it, right? And now that's the contrary. Now we do the studies, we interpret them, we advise our customer, and if we don't do that, we are blamed for it, right? So I want to say that during this last year, the pharmaceutical industry have changed. They have reduced the cost, they have reduced the size, the know-how flowed from the big pharma industry into the CRO, CMO world, and in the CRO industry, you find a lot of expertise now in different therapeutic areas. That's where we are now. We are helping also the pharmaceutical industry to reduce their costs and being more efficient by being their external R&D arm. And regarding artificial intelligence, I think that this is the next step. Artificial intelligence will boost again the creativity in the pharmaceutical industry, right? And this is what was telling this guy in YouTube. So I think that this will renew the creativity and the productivity within the pharmaceutical industry. All right, there is some problems with the format of the title, but that's okay. Some numbers by continent, just to show you what has been invested since 2015 in the robotics area, in the artificial intelligence area. UK, Dyson, you know the company, they sponsored the robotics center at the Imperial College, £5 million of pounds. EU, Horizon 2020, impulsing the technology, the innovation, 110 million euros. I'm sure at least one of you have collaborated into one of these projects. South Korea, a very dynamic nation, $500 million investment from 2015 to 2020, and they want to catch up with China and Japan. Japan, 22 billion estimation for the market in 2020. China, they overtook Japan. You know how many robots they are doing, so they will be the primary nation producing robots in the next future. And then US, of course, and we'll talk about it during the presentation. Google spends more than 600 million in a single acquisition buying DeepMind, without speaking about IBM and so forth. So plenty of investment, plenty of innovation, but I think we have to define well what kind of innovation. So there are two categories. The innovation, as we know, the evolutionary innovation. So that's progress, but it's continuous progress, step-by-step progress. And then you have the revolutionary innovation. And these revolutionary innovations are characterized by disruptive events, all right? By disruptive technologies like artificial intelligence, like big data analysis, like the Internet of Things. And this is what's, I mean, if you want to represent the progresses with the evolutionary revolution, it will be like this, and then you have the asymptotic revolutionary evolution. And just here, this is when you have the impact of the disruptive technologies. Industry 4.0, so we came from the early 18th century. Mechanization of production, Industry 2.0, Industry 3.0. 3.0 was also a big step. We used much more IT, smartphones, network, and so forth. The flow of the data become a part of our life. And then Industry 4.0 with disruptive technologies, more use of cyber-physical systems, as we will discuss now. Okay, so this is where we are now. We are in Industry 4.0. The Industry 4.0 is also affecting, besides affecting the discovery of new molecules, it also affects how we manufacture things. I don't know, cars, for example, but also drug products. And I will show you what we do in Evotech using disruptive technologies. So I've highlighted here all the disruptive technologies that are triggering the changes, because at the end this is what we are talking about. Changes of mindset, changes on how we handle the business, how we see the business, how we use our processes to increase our productivity. It's a continuous change. It's like the Lean Six Sigma, right? You try to improve the efficiency of a process by incorporating a mindset change. So disruptive technology, this is what they do, but they do from a technological point of view, and then we have to follow up and adapt to it. We have to change, right? So augmented reality is one of the disruptive technology. Artificial intelligence, advanced analytics, big data analysis, bioinformatics, a lot of application in drug discovery, Internet of Things. Okay, and this is what we do in Evotech. So we have incorporated the artificial intelligence in our workflow. And basically because we believe that the scientists cannot cope with the amount of data that is being published. We cannot digest all of this. Tons of papers are published every day. Inside the company, we generate tons of data, so we need help. And as Carlos was saying, it's quite difficult to interpret those changes from a binary code to another. So that's the same with the data generated in the company. Any type of data, not only in discovery, but any type. So you need to digest it. And it's what we call now the new oil, no? The new, I would say, the new the new richness of the word, it relies on the information, on the value of the information. So in discovery, we have old processes and they have to change, and we have to change them by applying artificial intelligence. You know that bringing a drug to a market costs $1.5 billion of dollars. There is a high risk to it. Only 5%, between 1 and 5% of candidates that enter the regulatory drug development will make it through to the clinical development and commercialization. High risk of attrition. We fail to meet key challenges in dementia, in neurodegenerative diseases. You know, we don't have a cure for Alzheimer, we don't have a cure for Parkinson. We are still there, and we need to progress in these areas. Antimicrobial resistance is also another hot topic nowadays. We're discussing with a colleague just right now. So now everybody is talking about that. So 10 years ago or 5 years ago, nobody was talking about it. We had to drop the research in antimicrobials, and now everybody restart thinking about it. And then we also have drugs that failed and that are remaining on the shelves. So these drugs that failed might be useful for repositioning to be used for other types of therapies, different from those for those that they were originally designed, right? And the artificial intelligence can help us. So we have all these data that we have accumulated with during years and years of drug discovery, and we cannot leave this unattended. So we need to capitalize on this data. We need to capitalize on the know-how. And this is what we have implemented in Evotec. We have developed computer-assisted drug design of compounds with critical partnerships that we'll discuss a bit. Analysis of molecular phenotype, and the rationale, the strategy is fewer compounds, better compounds, and successful compounds. All right, this is a collaboration that we set up with a company called Exscientia. Exscientia developed artificial intelligence to digest all these data that we have accumulated in the drug discovery process. It's an iterative process, and we have been going forward in retrosynthetic planning to increase the quality of the drug candidate going into development. We are also using high content image analysis that we are feeding our system, and all these images, all these data are fed to the artificial intelligence, to the neuronal network, and that neuronal network will, at the end, after various iterative cycles, propose you the best molecule that has a lot of probability to go into clinical development. So I don't know what happened with the format, but it's really awful. But I mean, just to summarize it, so this is a press release with explaining the agreement we set up, the association we set up with Exscientia, and basically it's to discover specific small molecules in immuno-oncology therapeutic indications, and that's the process. So I just want you to know, because I mean, I will not go into the detail of the entire process, but the critical aspect is entering the data, inputting the data. You need people, you need a lot of people to do that. It's not easy, and this is the major critical point, to make the machine learn of what you want it to do for you. So when you enter all the data that we have in drug discovery, all the publication, the literature, the patents, in this case fragments are very important. A set of compounds, millions of compounds, are screened. The machine itself do in silico mutation on the molecules, and then it generates a set of hundreds of compounds. this is again applied against a set of structural activity relationship data, like the targets, of course, the selectivity on the target, off-target toxicity, ADME, PK properties, bioavailability data, and so forth. Iteration again, and then you come up with tens of compounds. And this is where Evotec is entering, and you still need human input to select the right candidate, and we isolate tens compounds from a medicinal chemistry point of view that will be synthesized and will go into the drug development process. So what we are doing here with Exscientia, and for a specific indication, is that we are increasing the productivity and the creativity of the drug discovery process. That was drug discovery. In drug development, there are 6 critical disruptive trends in manufacturing, so you have them indicated here. So in Evotec, we are focusing on these ones: the artificial intelligence, smart manufacturing, and we also include automation in our processes. So regarding the artificial intelligence, we have, in manufacturing, you have a lot of processes and you have a lot of machines that are producing data every day on a single process. When you have to produce a tablet, there is data on compression, there is data on temperature, on humidity, on whatever. There is data coming out from the chromatographic instruments, a lot of data, not only technical data, but also data regarding the status of the equipment, the status of its maintenance, and everything. So when you look at it from an external point of view, you see there are a lot of data that are generated. And what we thought is using this data in order to increase the quality of our maintenance, right? So what we are doing is using this data to try to prevent failure, right? So we call that the preventive maintenance, and some companies will call that cognitive maintenance. So you can build, you can use a software, an artificial intelligence that can help you in predicting when your machine will fail or what are the conditions that will cause your machine to fail. And this is really critical in manufacturing. So we are doing this, we are implementing this in Evotec, especially in the manufacturing area. So that's one application. Smart training, augmented reality. This is the future. It's like science fiction, but I think that training of people is very important. And we had the idea with a manufacturer to outsource the design of a program that will enable our operators to be trained virtually. So they will have those glasses, virtual glasses. They will be in front of the machine, and they will have a virtual panel that will explain them how to handle the machine and how to maintain the machine. So we train our people, and I think we will also increase the maintenance of our people, besides the fact that we are incorporating something very new and very innovative. No? So that's another application, and we are working with the university to do that. And then, when you manufacture a drug product, you have to control intermediate stages. So you have to do internal process control. This is how we call that. You have to control the assay purity. You have to control the assay itself, the temperature, and whatsoever. And so we are also automating these processes, and we are also moving into continuous manufacturing. That means that you start by doing the first process to the last process in a continuous way, and you monitor online all the parameters that you want to monitor, right? So these are the three main applications of, I would say it's not really artificial intelligence, but it's automation, it's big data analysis coupled to Internet of Things. Because all the data that we are collecting, it's not so easy. So what we have done is to install sensors to our chromatographic system, to our manufacturing machine, and those sensors are communicating the critical data, the data we want, to our artificial intelligence system. Another application, data mining. Again, a lot of data. We run a lot of drug development programs. We generate a lot of data, and this is very, for a client, for example, we can run various programs on various analogs, for example, and there is a huge amount of data generated from a pharmacokinetic point of view and from a toxicology point of view. We have a lot of data, histopathology and so forth. So what we are doing is to use this data and to generate new interpretations of those data covering all those analogs. That's one application, and we are using also artificial intelligence to do that. So data mining in concrete means data collection. Again, data collection is critical. So we saw for drug discovery, to start the iterative process, you need to enter a lot of data. You need the human to do that, the man is to do that. The same here for the data mining process that we have. We enter the data. It's a tedious process, but once it's done, it works automatically. The machine learns. Data cleaning is important because not all the data is important. You have to remove what we call the background noise. Data analysis, of course. We establish the model. The machine learns to use the model. It improves it. And then we take the conclusion and we make our prediction. It's basically the same thing that we do in manufacturing, but applied to data gathering and interpretation. And what do we do with this? So we generate new types of reports, new types of interpretation for our clients. We worked with, we are working with the FDA. We generate data packages for them for regulatory submission. And it helps us to generate high quality generation of regulatory document. We produce very easily electronic documentation to be submitted to the regulatory agencies. At the end, the net results is an improvement of the process and a higher productivity and a higher quality. Okay, this is more operational. So we have scientific data, but we also have operational data, and we use this operational data coupled to the financial data to, again, improve processes internally and to become more efficient. And indirectly, this increases the productivity, of course. And again, we use the artificial intelligence. All right, this is another sector. So we have seen discovery, we have seen development, and now healthcare. So application of artificial intelligence in healthcare. You probably know those examples. So the Watson from IBM and DeepMind from Google. These are two interesting examples and of actuality. So supercomputer IBM, that's great. It's a great invention. IBM invested a lot of money into that, and the machine is focused on 7 types of cancer, which is not too bad, but they should increase it. And that's one of the major caveats they have at this moment. And again, the major difficulty that they encounter is the data entry. Okay? So data input is critical, and what kind of data, as in discovery, as in development, apply to the pharmaceutical industry? It's cases, clinical cases, literature, imaging, genomic data. So the machine has to learn. So again, the human input is still needed. It's always needed because the machine has to learn, and it takes a long time. And the problem they have now is that they don't have, the network that they have is still limited, but they still, they have 50 hospitals on 5 continents, but it's still limited. So the machine is still delivering a limited output. The doctors, the feedback from the doctors in all the countries is not really negative, but not really positive neither. It's just satisfactory. The machine is just recommending treatments that are not far from those the doctor can predict. The other thing that doesn't satisfy the doctors nowadays is that sometimes the machine is producing a recommendation and it is not capable of explaining the rationale of that therapeutic treatment. That's one of the major caveats. So still not perfect, adjustments have to be made. And then of course resistance from doctors to use it. So it's a change in the process again. And we have a natural trend to resist to change, and this is happening also to the doctors. Okay, but at the end, this will increase our productivity and our creativity, as we said in the beginning. So we still have benefits. Time saving, more productivity. We also, the Watson, when it will work fully, will enable a better education of the patients, and I'm sure Carlos will agree with that. Of course, less decision point. It will be more straightforward. And then when all the input, all the data is entered into the system, we will reach a point that the best data from the literature will be extracted to provide the best treatment. And then this is quite interesting, and this is related also to the example of Carlos. In 20 seconds, Watson did what it takes to 20 doctors to do over a week. This is very beautiful, but again, we are still far from what they want the computer to achieve because of data input and the quality of the data. So need more streams of clinical data, still need human oversight, and it will take time before it will be not necessary. And as I said before, the explainability level is not satisfactory nowadays, still. Deep minds, this is the Google artificial intelligence, for more than 400 millions of pounds. Deep minds, in contrast to the IBM Watson, is focusing on eye disease. And basically what it does is analyzing 3D retinal scans. And this is really interesting because the DeepMind is really effective nowadays. And in August 2018, they published in the Nature Medicine that its accuracy was as high as the experts in detecting the diabetic eye disease and the macular degeneration. And on top of that, it provided the best course of action for the patients in the UK. And that's wonderful. The level of explainability here is much higher than compared to Watson. And it's trained on a database of 15,000 eye scans. Obviously, people are needed to enter those eye scans into the system. The machine is to learn, but DeepMind has been proved to be effective. And I think it's very important because you see this So the patients are at risk of losing their sight because doctors can't look at their eye scan in time. So if the doctors last 1 week in interpreting the retina scan, it can have dramatic effect for the patient. And this is here where the artificial intelligence can improve the quality of our treatment and the responsiveness of the doctors. So they even speak about changing the way the NHS is working because they recognize that they are overstretched. On top of that, UK is an aging population, I think, as the words start to feel it. And the clinicians are overwhelmed. So artificial intelligence is here to help. So that's another segment. This is a Spanish startup, very small startup. So it's 3 people, very young people, 26, 27 years old. And I met them, and curiously, I met them 2 weeks ago. And it was in a forum, and I said that I was due to present something on artificial intelligence, which still represents a challenge for me to speak about it. And they explained me their story, you know. So, and they have a beautiful idea because they are focusing on home care. So, and the idea is that for chronic diseases, and you know that the people can stay for a long time to the hospital, and what's happening and what will happen more and more is that the dehospitalization, the discharge rate from the hospital will increase in the next years. So we will have more and more people at home being treated, and they will be followed by from the distance by the doctors. So they just had the idea to build a virtual network that will collect data from the patient home, and that will allow the doctors to monitor online the patient and even control if the patient has taken the capsule, has taken the tablet, and so forth. So it's a very bright idea. It's not simple. They are called HAID, Home Care Assistance in the Innovative Digital Environment. So, and this is their business rationale. So reduce the cost of hospitalization by enhancing the quality of home care and patient monitoring and control. Yes, they are focused on chronic respiratory disease. This is what I liked also, because they didn't tell me we are embarked on a wide range of therapeutic indications. No, chronic respiratory diseases because of the high hospital discharge rate. And here you have some figures from the NIH. So chronic respiratory disease account for more than 300,000 Europeans dying every year. Asthma, allergy, COPD, and that costs to the health system more than 300 billion euros. So the chronic respiratory disease are among the most prevalent chronic disease in Europe, and this is a fact. So what they do is to monitor environmental, health, vital parameters, sleep, metabolism, and general activity of the patient. They use, I'm sure you all know the Fitbit, right? So they use this kind of smart watch that register the cardiac rate. They have, some of these are even an ECG incorporated to that. It's actually a medical device, right? Blood pressure, the amount of calories that have been consumed. So they have a view on the metabolism, the activity, so the quality of the sleep, and all of this is captured, and they treat this data. So online data streaming and data collection. So at home, they have been able to install sensors at home, at the patient's home, and all the data that is produced by the smartwatch or the sensors are relayed to those small sensors that you would not see it, and these are sensors of like this in the wall. Those are collecting the data. They are relaying to the cloud infrastructure that they have. It's actually very complex. So I will show you the infrastructure. On top of that, they have designed an app, an application that allows the doctor to access the patient data. They can monitor the oxygen consumption, the monitoring of the capsule intake. So there are blisters, and when you take the capsules, there is a sensor. So you broke the sensor, and the sensor emits a signal that is recorded by the sensor of aid, and this is registered in the platform, and the doctor can access that online and live. And then big data analysis, because it's a lot of data, from simple visualization to complex data analysis for retrospective analysis and prevention. It's not only to control the patient, but also to try to build historical data on the patient and try to prevent any further, I don't know, cardiovascular accident. Because I mean, you need to know that cardiovascular accidents are linked to the respiratory disease. So on top of that, the hardware and software infrastructure would be applicable to clinical trial patient monitoring. So they started some discussions with some companies to incorporate their platform into clinical trials, and they would help the doctors monitoring those trials to control the patients and to collect the data and interpret it. So I really think that this is a reshaping of the future of home care. It's a revolution. And it's an example of how you apply disruptive technology to home care. So this is their hardware and software infrastructure. So yes, you have the bracelet. Here you monitor the oxygen consumption. They have sensors to monitor the temperature, the humidity, the light sensor, and other types of sensors. I don't know, they have everything. So it's tons of data that are relayed to their router and to the iCloud. All the data that is here can be accessed by the patient and the doctor. And on top of that, they are using artificial intelligence to do big data analysis and to identify trends and to build preventive actions. At this moment, they have in the pre-validation phase, so they are testing the platform on 5 healthy patients, and they're discussing with private and public hospital to do a validation phase involving 100 healthy patients. I mean, this is great. I mean, this is full of energy. You would see those young people; they are full of energy. But of course, and this was my advice. No, I mean, these guys, they are informatics engineers, which is great. They are strong in building the infrastructure. But my advice to them was that they need to have people understanding the data and also the industry. So you need to have medical doctors or somebody from the pharmaceutical industry that can help you in progressing the future of the startup. But again, I think it's a nice application of Internet of Things and big data analysis. So dream or reality? I think it's a reality. You have seen that we are applying the artificial intelligence in drug discovery, big data analysis, Internet of Things in drug development. You have seen examples in healthcare. You've seen examples in home care. So I think this is happening, and we cannot slow it down. And we have to change our mindset. We have to change the way we understand science, understand healthcare, It's just a matter of change and to use this potential to make us stronger, right? So that's part of the fourth industrial revolution. And just a summary, this is deemed to increase the productivity and creativity especially in drug discovery. However, we still have, that still needs the input of a very large amount of data coming from everywhere. That means that there is still a lot to do to clean this data, to verify the trueness of the data. So there is still a lot of work to do. So data input is critical. And then in manufacturing, it's a revolution of the processes, automation. We discussed about preventive and cognitive maintenance. So we improve the quality of our deliverables, the quality of the products that we are manufacturing. And then IoT and big data will reshape the healthcare sector. So that's a reality. Thank you very much for listening, and I apologize for the format of the diapositives.
Well, I have the advantage of having two presentations in the same session, so now I will move to this microphone because I don't like it that. So the original presentation was thought to be by Brigham Hyde, and the idea was to show you how they use real-world data to program smart clinical trials. But unfortunately, he's not here. So, ¿me pones la presentación, por favor? Gracias. So yesterday, I was having fun, enjoying Sevilla's night with a good beer, and unfortunately, I received this fatal mail. Brigham is not coming. Wow. What can I do? So tomorrow is the session. He will not be here, no presentation, and we have 25 minutes left in the middle of the session. So I enter into this state of craziness and insanity, start asking me, well, what should I do? So I don't know. Maybe we can contact somebody to give another presentation. And sorry, I'm like to move because my Italian origin makes me that I cannot speak without moving my hands and my legs. So, so I decided to say, well, you are a scientist, you are supposed to be innovative, and you are supposed to find solutions for very difficult problems. So you can find some solution to these problems, not having a speaker. And I remember at the time that last week I was invited by the people organizers of the second Artificial Intelligence on Drug Development Congress that was held in London, and they asked me to give a talk there. And the idea of the talk was to give my vision as a physician, as a simple medical doctor, of what is artificial intelligence. Because I told them, you are engineers, you are computer scientists, you are data analysts, IT guys. I will not discuss with you about algorithms, autoencoders, and all this stuff, because I can't. So I understand what they are doing, but I'm not proficient on that to discuss with you at that level. And they request me another thing. They say, no, what we want to know is why you, as a doctor, truly believes that artificial intelligence can be a real disruptive tool to make a smarter cancer research. So that's why the subject of my talk, and I would like to repeat it now, because, well, I didn't have any other option between that. But I think it will go, and I will move in the same direction as Chiriaco was saying before. This is a tool. This is not going to replace us. It's something that will help us to better understand what's going on in our patients and to make a cure better than we are doing now. And so I have decided to start by the very basics of medicine, why I have become a doctor. And I'm sure that if you go to medical schools and ask students why they decided to become a doctor, or you go to hospitals and you ask doctors why they have decided to become a doctor, in 98% they will say the same answer, to cure patients. There are always 2% of people that think that doctors earn a lot of money and they decided to become doctors because they will become rich. It's not true. I can assure you. But 98% of the people will say, I want to cure people. And the next question is, what is to cure people? So we go to the dictionary and we can find that to cure is to restore people to health. So we agree, all of this, I'm sure that we are going to agree on this definition. But the next question is more difficult because what is health? And if we open a debate here, I'm sure that you are going to have many different definitions of what health is. So to avoid this in the sake of time, I went just to take the definition of the World Health Organization that in his 1948 preamble, they define health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So, for the WHO organization and for every doctor, a healthy state is a complete state of well-being of a DNA inside the cell that is part of a tissue that conforms an organ that together with other organs form a system biology called a human body that with the psyche will form a unique individual living inside the family, part of a social group, living in a specific region of a particular geographical region inside the world. And I will stop there. I will not go into the universe. I'm not so crazy. So healthy state is the sum of all of this. And if we want to evaluate the health state of somebody, we need to evaluate all of this, not just the biology. Because health is the complete state of well-being at the physical level, mental level, and social level. So this is the first stuff. So we can redefine what is curing people. And we can now say that to cure people is to restore people to a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. And we need to analyze all of these variables, not just genetics. That's a small part of what a healthy state is. So let's see now how doctors were trying to cure people along history. And from Hippocrates, and then Galen, and then Celsus, these doctors were alone in the middle of a population using their brain and their 5 senses in order to collect information to cure these people. This is what I call, the individual human intelligence model. These guys were using just that, their 5 senses and their brain to collect information from the unhealthy people. And they use a very specific methodology. The first step was anamnesis, talk to the people. It is rare, maybe nowadays, to say that doctors must speak with the people, but, well, these guys were talking with the patients, talking with their families, talking with the neighbors to collect the most information possible. And then they have a very methodological step, physical examination, observation. So take a look at the people. What is happening here? Palpation, percussion, auscultation. So these guys use their 5 senses and their brain to talk with the people, to touch the people, to listen to them and listen to the sound of the body. And by this way, they can really classify their diseases. They can really predict what was going to happen to these patients. And in the end, just to make a right diagnosis. And I assure you that if you go and read what Hippocrates written almost more than 2,000 years ago, such as the aphorisms and sentences, you can see that half of the diseases that we know today, he was diagnosing this without anything, just his brain and his 5 senses. And this cannot be replaced by any machine. So the problem was that at that time, a cancer patient would have obviously a sure death because there were no treatments. But doctors then start to speak with them, start to form groups, to build hospitals, to generate technology, and we move into what I have called collective human intelligence model. Because, as we said before, and the example of later on, before, a group of people is always smarter than any individuals. And in this collective human intelligence model, doctors were grouped, and they were using the same methodology as the individual intelligence, but adding new technologies, imaging, laboratory tests, pathology, and now we can analyze all and collect data from all these processes: DNA sequencing, pathology, the clinical level, imaging, the family. Indeed, in hospitals, you have multidisciplinary teams treating cancer patients. And in these multidisciplinary teams, you have radiologists, you have oncologists, you have nurses, you have social workers, you have psychologists, and all together, we are analyzing the whole environment of this patient in order to better classify the disease, to predict what's going to happen with these patients, and to treat better patients. And by this way, we have achieved and managed to really improve cancer treatment. Now, we induce remissions in patients. But remission, as defined by the dictionary, is a temporary decrease or subsidence of manifestations of a disease. It's not a cure. Because cure, we have defined it as to restore people to a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. And cancer remission is not cancer cure. And I'm sorry to tell it, but we are not curing cancer. We are just inducing remission in our patients. It's better to live 10 years more than die in 6 months. And this is what we are doing with our current treatments. But we are not curing most of our patients. We have always a subset of patients that will benefit and will cure. But in most of them, we are inducing this cancer remission. So how to create smarter cancer research in order to cure cancer patients, not just inducing remissions? This is the current model, collective human intelligence, inducing remission. And what we need to do is to create a new kind of collective intelligence, so collective human intelligence plus something. And this something is artificial intelligence. And I'm sure that using and adding artificial intelligence here plus our collective human intelligence, we will achieve this goal of curing people. Why? Because, as we said before, collections of people and computers will always be smarter than people together working alone, or smarter than computers working alone. So what can AI add to our human intelligence? First of all, we suffer from an enormous body of data. Our brain is overwhelmed with information. We can't process this anymore. We need help for that. And this is what these systems can help us. And this is going to be worse because in the improvements in mobile phone technology, sensors, connectivity, as Chiriaco was showing us, will generate extraordinarily detailed insights into an individual's health. But now we have the technology, advanced analytics, machine deep learning, natural language processing, that can assimilate this massive amount of data and discern the relevant patterns and insights on this data, allowing the application of the world of healthcare data to an individual's particular healthcare situation. So this new kind of collective intelligence, this new model joining human and artificial intelligence is this one. So we will continue doing the same, using our brain and our 5 senses to collect information. We will continue using technological information coming from imaging, laboratory tests, pathology, but now we have the opportunity to obtain information from mobile devices, real-time, the diet, exercise, GWAS, RNA-seq, proteome, microbiome, and all the omics that you want in order to generate a better model of what's going to happen in our patients. So we have all this information together, and this for sure will help us to better classify and predict what's going to happen to our patients, and I hope this is going to achieve our goal, that is to cure patients. And we need to take in oncology the example of other pathologies, of other specialties. We were discussing with Chiriaco before, and I was telling him that when I studied in the 80s at the medical school, we studied hypertension with a cardiologist, diabetes with endocrinologist, overweight with a nutritionist. And then one day in the 90s, they decided to say, well, but all these are symptoms and signs of the same syndrome that is called metabolic syndrome, that is related to low-grade systemic inflammation. And they have decided to take this with an holistic treatment approach. So instead of giving an antihypertensive drug directly to the guy, they said, well, first-line treatment, lifestyle modification. You have to change your work, you have to change your diet, you have to make more exercise, you have to sleep better, and then, if needed, we will move into the pharmacological area. And the information that we have now, and I hope that all this new data collection will help us to decipher also that maybe cancer is an inflammatory chronic disease related, and is part of this metabolic syndrome. And maybe we need to have this holistic approach associated to this strategy of destroying the tumor, because destroying tumors just let us to make remissions, not to cure the patient. And these guys have decided to change the treatment paradigm. They have this first-line treatment, and now they cure the metabolic syndrome. So people lost weight, they are in fitness, because they eat well, they sleep better, and all of this is because they are controlling this chronic inflammation that inside us, and after years and years and years, are generating cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, or maybe cancer. And I'm sure that the analysis of all this big data and artificial intelligence will help us to decipher whether cancer can be attacked with the same approach, because in the end, the cure for cancer is data, mountains of data. But data, not just generic data, data of all. The idea would be to recreate virtual patients, and this is our small objective in the lab, so recreate a virtual patient where we can understand what is happening there. And this would be the real personalization. Just analyze everything, what's going on in this patient, not just only at the biological level, but at the mental level and at the social level. So to conclude this talk, what I'm going to state is that the goal of every medical act is to restore people to a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. What we normally call this to cure somebody. And the current model of collective human intelligence has only accomplished the remission of cancer so far, but not the cure. And I'm sure and I hope that this new model of human computers, collective intelligence, working together would be able to achieve once for all this objective that is curing our cancer patients. And well, that's all what I had to say about this. So thank you so much. And now I will invite Chiriaco to receive some, if there is any questions there. Questions? Uno, dos, tres, vendido. Well, okay. No? Well, thank you so much. I think it's time for lunch, so let's move then.